Ready in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, I'm James King, author of the series HIVE. Tonight I'd like to talk to you about my latest book, published by aois21, and it's called A Matter of Gravity. It's actually two books that we put together as one. The first was A Matter of Gravity. The second was, well, the first was O'Meara versus the Hive, and the second was A Matter of Gravity. We've combined those two together, and it is part of the space drama that I conceived a few years ago and started writing about. And to that end, I would like to read maybe a little section of A Matter of Gravity. And this has to do with the time in the book when the Space Marines, at least the commando section of them, called the Queen Killers, are invading a Hive ship in space. And their mission is to locate the Hive Queen and to kill her. The space fleet is out there waiting for the Marines to finish, and they will bombard the Hive fleet when the Marines have finished killing the Queen. So this is a section of that. It's when they first arrive on the ship. The twilight-lit corridor was empty. Daniel stepped out of the airlock into a curving hall and looked both ways. O'Meara and his 30 men have disappeared. Daniel chinned the command circuit of his radio and called, "Sarge, this is Sparshot. We're inside. Where are you?" There was no response. Daniel was more irritated than worried. If O'Meara had been attacked as soon as he had entered the Hive ship, there would have been some evidence of a fight, and there was none. Marty should have set up a defensive perimeter outside the airlock and waited for the other half of his men to arrive. Now the Queen Killers were divided, without contact and without each other. He would be forced to use his own judgment. Looking at the oxygen sensor on his wrist, Daniel switched to the troop command channel and announced, "Oxygen is okay. You can open your faceplates now and form up into teams." His radio crackled. It was Marty O'Meara's voice, and he sounded agitated. "Damn it, Marcus. Get that Greenie. He's still alive." To Daniel, that meant the other half of the unit was in a firefight with insectoids. He shouted, "Follow me." The loudness of his voice inside of his helmet meant that he had forgotten to open his faceplate. Popping his faceplate open, he shouted again, "Follow me!" Waving his arm, he turned right and jogged down the hall in the direction that he believed the Hive engine room to be. As he rushed, he hoped the ship's propulsion area was in the same place as all the other Hive ships that he had examined. Marty's voice again came over the radio. "Sparshot, where are you?" "Coming, Sarge. What's happening?" Marty sounded disgusted. "A group of the Greenies come up behind us, and now we're holed up in a storage room, waiting for you." "Be there in a moment." Daniel chinned his radio. "This is Sparshot. Let's slow down and go carefully. We want to catch the Greenies by surprise." Looking ahead, he could see nothing in the dim light. He slapped his faceplate closed and activated the infrared sensor. The faceplate went green, and whitish bodies could be seen moving in the hall in front of him. Opening his faceplate, he turned to his Marines behind him. "Greenies are just ahead. I'll take the point. Squad 2, you are rear guard. Squad 3, stay with me." 10 Marines of Squad 1 moved forward with their weapons at the ready. And Daniel spoke into his radio. "Sergeant, we're nearing you. Toss out an emergency flare to the hall in front of the Greenies. That'll blind them. But let us know when you're going to do it so we can button up." "Okay, Dan, flare delivery in 10 seconds. And Daniel said over his radio, "Activate sun shields and be ready to move after the flare pops." Daniel touched his helmet sensor to clear his faceplate. He could see nothing until the alien hull lit up like a rising sun. Then he could see several insectoid warriors outlined so vividly that he was able to count their arms and legs. The warriors were near an opening, and it looked like two of the bugs were dead on the floor. The flare began to diminish in intensity, and Daniel engaged the rangefinder on his faceplate. The crosshair zeroed in on one of the tall insectoids and read that the location was 80 meters away. He turned off his sun shield and could see the aliens plainly by the dying flare light. Troops, deactivate sun shields. Squad 1, advance 10 meters now and commence firing. Squad 2, you are rear guard. Squad 3, stay with me. The Marines of Squad 1 marched forward. Daniel turned to see Squad 2 facing the rear and moving slowly backwards. As Daniel faced front again, the Marines began firing their slasher weapons. The green insectoids were apparently still blind from the flare and seemed to be confused. In the light of the several laser beams, Daniel saw bugs disintegrate and fall. As Marines advanced, waving their weapons side to side in short arcs, the warriors became smaller and smaller pieces. "Cease fire," he said over his radio. The lasers flickered off, and Daniel had to wait a moment for his eyes to adjust to the dim light. He opened his faceplate, and his nose was immediately assaulted by the smell of burned bugs. "Sergeant Amir, the greenies are dead, and we're moving forward to your location." Marty's voice came over the radio. "Okay, guys, let's move out. The lieutenants took care of the enemy." Daniel met Marty at the opening. The sergeant looked down briefly at the dissected insectoids and grinned through his open faceplate. "Hey, that flare was a good idea. Good thinking, as usual. Now let's get to the engine room before more greenies show up." Amir jogged away, followed by his 3 squads. Daniel held his troops in place until all the troopers from the storage room had filed out. The last man towed a foldable grav gurney with a Marine strapped to it. Daniel motioned his group to fall in behind and caught up with the gurney with the wounded Marine. He was able to read his name on the chest. "Smothers, what happened?" Smothers lay on the floating gurney as he swayed behind the troop pulling it. He had one hand holding a weapon and the other grasping the side of the gurney. He opened his eyes and looked at the officer. "It was my fault, Lieutenant. I was rear guard and I wasn't watching good enough. I looked away and Sarge reading a map or something, and the next thing I know, bug lasers were popping all around me. I got Demetrius, and I was pulling her back when I was hitting the leg. It ain't that bad, though." "Where's Demetrius?" "She bought it. We left her in the room." Daniel became slightly numb at the news. The first death in the battle that he had ever experienced, and Demetrius was a good Marine, bright and enthusiastic. He patted the side of the swaying gurney and grimaced slightly as he looked down at the remains of the Marine's left leg. From what he could see, it would look like half of it was missing. "Sure, you'll be fine, don't worry." Daniel dropped back and jogged behind the gurney and thought, why had Marty stopped to read a map? He knew the layout of the HIVE ship better than anyone. A map should not have been necessary. Another sign of a failing mind, or was he just being cautious? "Found the engine room," said the voice of Amir in his ear. "Lieutenant, I'm going in with 2 squads to clear the bugs. You set up a perimeter until the grav generator is blown." And I'll leave it there. And I don't want to give too much away. So hopefully you enjoy the HIVE series and you enjoy my writing. And we'll soon see more coming. Thank you very much.